Hello, and welcome to Breast Cancer Conversations, a podcast brought to you by SurvivingBreastCancer.org. I am Laura Carfing, breast cancer survivor and founder of SurvivingBreastCancer.org, a nonprofit organization providing community, education, and resources to empower those diagnosed with breast cancer and their caregivers from day one and beyond. Good morning, everyone. Oh my gosh, I love tuning in each week and connecting with all of you. It literally allows me to jump out of bed, head over to the microphone, and say hello to all of you. So good morning. I'm so happy we're able to connect today on Breast Cancer Conversations. I'm your host, Laura Carfig, and if you're joining us for the first time, welcome. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast and receive notifications each week when we come out with a new episode. You can find our podcast on Apple Podcast, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. We also started something new. If you haven't heard of Patreon, go check it out. We have our very own Patreon account, and it is a great way to support the work that we do so we can continue to offer this content. And for all of you who tune in each week, I am so thrilled that we are able to connect again today. Before we jump into today's podcast, I want to let everybody know that we are going to be down in San Antonio next week for the San Antonio Breast Cancer Symposium. So if you're listening and happen to be in the area, please find us at the conference. And you can always contact me at laura@survivingbreastcancer.org so we can meet up. All right, so let's dive right in. This podcast, I am so excited because this is really long overdue. Over the summer, William and I flew out to Portland, Oregon to meet with Alicia and Angela Duncan. And this meeting was amazing. I feel like Alicia is my cancer twin. We can be on the phone for hours laughing. It's always a little bit of back and forth with the time zone differences being on the East Coast and West Coast. And you'll just hear a bunch of laughter as we use comedy as a way of coping with a breast cancer diagnosis. You will hear some fun inside jokes about how I turn into a pumpkin because I go to bed at 9 p.m. You'll also hear the realities of when I got my tattoos for radiation and they actually came out blue, even though I was told they were going to look like a mole. We talk about everything from sex and intimacy, vaginal dryness, our diagnoses. Alicia is 8 years and thriving, so I am so thrilled to have her on the podcast today, along with her caregiver, Angela, who has a background in psychology and specifically works with products to help women with sexual intimacy. So this is a 1-hour podcast filled with so much information. It is super fun. You're going to hear us laugh. I hope you're laughing too as you're listening to our show, but then also realize that we are talking about some very serious topics, and we hope that you find this very educational and inspiring. Not only were we out there visiting some good and dear friends who we were meeting in person for the first time, but because of Alicia and Angela, we were invited to be plenary speakers at the Relay for Life event taking place this past August. And so you can find us on YouTube actually. There is a presentation given by myself, giving a presentation on survivorship, and then William giving a presentation on caregiving. So that was quite an honor. And this wouldn't have been made possible without amazing friends who listen and tune in every week from around the US and around the globe. So without further ado, welcome to the conversation. Here we are, podcast, Breast Cancer Conversations. Thank you guys so much for pretty much everything leading up to this making. I feel like you and I, Alicia, have been talking for probably about a year or so, or at maybe least. At least a year. And you found us, actually William and you connected over Twitter, I believe. And from there, I remember we exchanged phone numbers, and our first conversation, I think we talked for about an hour.
Only because you were going to turn into a pumpkin, so we would have talked longer.
Yes, okay, exactly. So we would have talked longer, yes. And that's why we had to fly out here to actually talk longer. Absolutely. And I don't think since I landed at 11:30 this morning, we've shut up. So there's clearly a lot to talk about. And we're eating pizza and we're having dinner, and this is just literally round table conversation. So for all of you listeners out there and for all of you watching live on Facebook, grab some dinner, grab a drink, and join the conversation. So cheers.
Cheers.
Woo! We talked for about an hour, and I turned into a pumpkin because, it was 9 o'clock. But I feel like what I'm so impressed with is that you are 8 years out from your diagnosis, which, first of all, congratulations. That is just so huge and stellar and such an inspiration for all of our listeners because you're in it, right? And you're in the thick of it, and you're just like, I just need to get to next week. I need to get to my next infusion. I need to just get past surgery. I need to just get past exchange, etc. And you always have these milestones, and you never think it's going to end. Right. And you are 8 years out, and this is just like rub off on me, because whatever you're doing, like keep on doing.
Pizza, wine, and some salad. That's what I do.
That's the prescription right there.
Yeah.
I love it. But I feel like this last couple of hours, you know, you took us on a tour of Portland. You were showing us around. You and Angela were sharing your day-to-day with us, and you talk about cancer as if it happened yesterday. And I mean this in a very positive way. It's not that we're thinking about cancer all the time because, woe is me, I'm so nervous and worried that cancer is going to come back, or, oh my God, cancer, I'm the victim. But we talk about it as this like empowering badge of honor, where it's like, I beat cancer, I fought cancer, I am living with cancer, and I'm still fighting cancer, right? It's this very positive day in the life of. Do you want to talk a little bit about, like, is it really just something you, like, that comes so natural to you?
Yeah, actually it does. So I almost find in every conversation a way to, I don't find a way for it to interject, but it comes to that point where it is interjecting. It's like, oh, that relates to the cancer because, you fought it, you beat it. It was a type of strength that you didn't realize you had. It's a type of, it kind of shows everything. You feel all of the big pieces that cancer has affected. You kind of feel it all together with every part of your life. Whether it's you're talking about weight gain, or you start talking about side effects, and or you're sitting at dinner and somebody starts talking about their weight, and you're like, well, yeah, look at my weight, thanks to the medication or whatever. But in the end, it also is an empowering thing because you really have beat something that so many people haven't. They've lost their lives to it. They have fought it. And I used to say that it was the strength that kept me through it. But, it is that, but it's the support that you get from your caregivers. But I also have found and have seen women and men, but women pass away from the cancer. And I would never say that none of them were strong enough to beat it, It's just a terrible disease. But it does make you feel really good when you know that you have beat something so incredibly difficult and something that takes a toll for several years with treatment, and then it continues after treatment. So It's kind of always something that's in the forth of your mind.
Well, absolutely. And that's your new normal. Right. That's your new journey throughout life is, I am a cancer survivor and I'm constantly beating and it's constantly there. What can I do to prevent it from coming back? What can I do to help others who are going through this? What can I do to, keep myself healthy? So not only is it challenging to go through and beat cancer, but it's challenging to learn the new norm.
Right.
Oh, 100%.
And I feel like when you start to find your new norm and you start to kind of accept it a little bit, you have almost overcame another chunk of that tough ability, because that's exactly what it does. It's when it's another portion that is hard to you beat cancer, you beat the disease itself, but then you're trying to overcome that new norm, and when you do, it's like, oh my gosh, I just overcame something else challenging, and it's another reward type feeling that you've accomplished.
Yeah, no, you bring up so many points. I'm like scrambling to find like my pen and paper over here, because like right in those like first 5 minutes, you've touched upon like language. So like what type of language empowers you, right? So like you are drawn to using terminology like I beat cancer, I've overcome something. And especially, on these conversations too, talking with people who are metastatic cancer, they don't want to ever feel like I was not strong enough. Right? That I lost my battle because it was something I did versus the cancer doing something to me. And that is something that I love talking about, because everyone's language is so specific to them. Like some people really thrive on words like fighter and, warrior, and that is so empowering, which I love. And then there's other people who really talk about, I am somebody living with cancer. And I talked to somebody recently too who used the words, I am healing from cancer, because she was also metastatic, but talking about every single day she's like fueling her body with like nutrients and everything to say, you know what, I don't even want to acknowledge the stage that I'm in because that's irrelevant.
Right.
I'm living, right? And you're overcoming and you're challenged, like everyone should be so proud of themselves because this isn't something that we chose. It happened to us. We have choices, but really do I sign the consent form and take this like terrible chemotherapy? Or do I take my chances and like, I don't know, try some other natural paths to see what I can do? And it's all such a very personal choice. So I appreciate you kind of just diving right in and opening up that landscape right there.
Absolutely. You know, it's interesting when you talk about that too, is when I was starting out with Relay for Life, it was my first year. I was about 3 days from my first chemo, and they had said, you know, we wear purple shirts because every survivor gets a purple shirt and it says survivor on the back. And I at first said, well, I don't deserve to wear that, you know. And I had a friend that came up to me and said, why don't you deserve to wear that? And I said, well, look at all these people that are getting ready to walk because they beat cancer. You know, they went through that incredibly tough, most difficult time in their life. And I don't even know if I'm going to live. You know, I don't necessarily, it was stage 3. And so my friend said the most empowering words to me were, surviving is a survivor. And it has stuck with me for the 8 years, literally, because
I use that every day in my job with the clients that I talk to every day on the phone. A lot of my clients are breast cancer survivors. And, you know, I've only been, you know, I'm 2 months out or a month out or 8 years out. I said, it doesn't matter. Surviving is, you know, survivor. You are a survivor. You are surviving from the minute that you find out that you have cancer. That's it.
Yep, you're fighting.
I totally agree. And oh my, this is like so symbiotic. I mean, the reason why I've started survivingbreastcancer.org and specifically chose the word surviving, if you go onto our website and scroll down on the homepage just a little bit, I have the definition of how we define survivor. And, you know, I know not everybody identifies with that word, and that's totally fine, but I take your definition 100%. Like, you are surviving, you are alive right now, and you are part of this community. And, like, come join the party.
Yeah, it's true. It is a almost, I call it a sisterhood, but I know there are men out there who have been diagnosed with breast cancer, but it is a giant family of people in the most odd and awkward, you know, subject. You know, we all have, you know, scars, and we've had chemo or we've had the lumpectomy, but in the end, we've all been told you have cancer, and that's what it comes down to. And when you have been told those words, you can get along with, and you almost mold to somebody else who has heard those words, because regardless of the stage, just comes down to those words, because you don't know, you know, stage 0, people have passed away, stage 4 pass away, you know, so it just doesn't matter your stage. What matters is that you've heard those words, and you have to start fighting as soon as those words come out.
Exactly. And you make a choice for like how you're going to then move forward.
Right.
Day to day.
Yep.
100%. And that's what I tell people too. You know, as we're launching the podcast, I'm personally working a little bit more on our intro and like, you know, what our like soundtrack is going to be. But now it's just addressing like, thank you all for like just showing up today, because you didn't have to, and it's a choice. Like whether you like get out of bed and brush your teeth and wash your face and go back to bed because you're tired, you know what, you put 2 feet on the ground and you chose to show up. And so like right there, like thank you for doing that.
Absolutely.
I love it. The other thing that you talked about was you find a way, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I heard was like you almost deliberately find a way to bring it up in conversations.
Yeah.
And I think that is so awesome, because we talk a lot also about how does breast cancer define me, or does it not define me? How does it doesn't have to be a definition of who I am or my identity or my core values. It was just a chapter in my life.
Before she talks about that, can I tell you the first couple years after treatment and after you were clear, that wasn't something that was talked about every day. That wasn't something that was brought up every day. That during that time, I believe looking back, that was a lot of, wow, things just calmed down a little bit. I've gone through my chemotherapy, radiation. I've gone through my surgeries. You know, now I need to process everything that just happened to me. And I was the one who was telling everybody, you know, it was interesting. Earlier we were talking about how William had said something about you having breast cancer
Yes.
at the wait staff. And that was kind of how I was as well. It was
Hi, I'm Angela, and she's had breast cancer.
my girlfriend has breast cancer, or she just beat breast cancer.
We would be at the grocery store
Yes.
in line picking out vegetables. Oh, I'm buying these vegetables, because she had cancer. And I'm like,
that was me too, and I can't tell you. And it was funny because he said you almost caught him off guard. William didn't know how to answer that. Like, well, I don't know why I said that either. A lot of it is, I think I was so proud of the fact that the person that I love just beat cancer, and and it did. It took a couple years before she was finally like, hey, this is my new norm, and now I'm going to take such a negative experience and I'm going to make it a positive.
I'm really glad you bring that up and kind of bring us back to actually those years. Because 8 years is a long time of it seems like it happened yesterday, but there's this whole other piece too of that transformation of processing. And what am I trying to formulate here? I'm just, you articulated it honestly perfectly, so I appreciate that. We never actually did formal introductions. So let's actually do this whole podcast backwards. So we started with 8 years. You beat cancer. We love the language. This is what we're using. We're never ever trying to offend anybody, but we're taking this because this is who we're talking with today and it's working.
Yeah.
From there, we talk about it all the time, but even before that, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, it's not something you talked about. And then 8 years ago, you were diagnosed.
Right. Sure.
And let's talk a little bit about who you guys are. You mentioned already in these first 10 minutes, in your business, you talk to survivors all the time. I didn't even ask you, what do you do? So let's rewind. Let's go. This is awesome because we've never done a podcast in reverse before.
Yeah.
That's how we roll.
Yeah,
We're just us Portlanders.
Keep Portland reversed.
Love it. New hashtag, everyone. That's it. So, Angela, tell us a little bit about what you do and what brought you into the breast cancer world.
So I work for Hip Hemp LLC, and what we do is make vaginal organic moisture pearls. We're originally designed for breast cancer survivors who cannot have estrogen. The thing is, for breast cancer, especially estrogen fed, estrogen is out of the body because that's what caused the cancer, right? Well, unfortunately, excuse me, what a lot of people who are going through cancer do not know is that, or even in general women do not know, is that, as soon as we lose our estrogen, stuff starts drying up. And it doesn't matter if you're 20, it doesn't matter if you're 80, you need estrogen to keep stuff vital and
they don't always tell you that.
Yeah,
They don't.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's what we decided
Heard
to.
it here first.
Hip Hemp, we came up with this product. It's all organic, natural, grapeseed oil, vitamin E, and hemp seed oil. That's it. That's all we put in our product. Worked very closely with gynecologists, oncologists, naturopathic doctors to make sure that we make a product that will not affect a woman's natural flora, that will actually work as well. And it's been a very successful company, but I would say probably 75% of my clients are breast cancer survivors.
Yep. And that's because Mary Jane is, some people know her, Mary Jane Hockey. She tattoos breast cancer survivors, or breast cancer individuals. I mean, they were all survivors from since the 1980s. Wow. So she tattooed my chest, and that was something that she heard. She's very passionate about breast cancer and her clients and their comfort. And so she invented this company knowing that she was going to help them with all of the things that she has, heard while they have sat in that chair and been tattooed, because you sit there for 4 or 5 hours, and several different increments throughout a year to get your chest piece done, to cover up those scars. And so she heard all the things that are hard to do, and all the it's the symptoms and the side effects and this and that. And so but then she didn't realize that creating this company was actually helping all women, because
Absolutely.
all women still end up dealing with the
we
same.
age. That's just what happens, unfortunately. I haven't found the fountain of youth yet.
Yep,
I wish
you
I
take
did.
care of your face, you take care of your hands. People are wanting youthful hands and makeup and lotions and stuff. Why not take care of the vagina? And that was kind of her thought.
Exactly. And as a woman ages, we go through menopause, and that's the first thing that goes is your estrogen. And then there's dryness, there's pain, there's atrophy. Along with those things, dryness, pain, and atrophy, you get UTIs, frequent urination problems, bladder leakage. I mean, the list goes on. And so that's why this product was designed, was to help those women that cannot have estrogen, or women that do not want to put estrogen in their body.
And
And
can I just stop you right there?
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
absolutely.
because like train of thought here and like chemo brain. So I feel
yeah,
like this
absolutely.
is.
No,
But
no.
you just listed a whole bunch of side effects that don't come on the prescription bottle of when we're on these
Exactly.
estrogen like prohibitors. So
Absolutely.
wow. Okay. Can you tell me more?
And that's, it's very interesting. That's one thing. I would say 85% of my clients that I talk to, they all tell me the same thing, that my doctor never told me that this was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And growing up, your mom might sit down and talk to you about having your period and about what happens as you become a woman. But your mom never sits down and tells you, by the way, you're going to age and you're going to lose, estrogen, and you're going to get dry.
And your vagina's going to dry up.
Yeah.
And it's going to be
They
a bad
don't.
day.
Yeah. And so this is stuff, for some reason, society has made it such a taboo subject as well. And that's something that we need to get past, and that's that one day at a time we're taking it, but we're hoping that, we can get past that taboo
Education
subject.
and knowledge.
Education and
Completely.
just letting women know, hey, there's a safe place. You can come, you can join, our community. You can learn all about these products, but you can talk and say, hey, I experience this. And there's nothing that says a woman cannot enjoy sex either. Why do you have to grin and bear it? You don't.
Yep.
Exactly.
Let's be happy.
And we can ask questions too.
Absolutely.
So I feel like sometimes we don't even know the questions to ask.
Right.
And okay, sure, it could be taboo, or people go through this in silence, or suffer through it in silence while they're actually going through menopause naturally.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you deal with this when you are medically induced into menopause?
When you're
Absolutely.
30 years old,
Yep.
or in the 30s like you and I, and your body wants to be that age, including your vagina, but your medications are pushing you into somebody who's 70, 80, who has sometimes progressed into that position of health and issues. So that's exactly it. It's very hard for people, because my doctor told me that how she treats me is how she treats people in their 70s and 80s. She said, I don't treat anybody in their 30s with the pneumonia shot, things like that. She says, it's just completely different for us.
Yes.
And so it is. There's a lot of emotional issues that come along with that. And when you're at the oncologist, they tell you, well, let's talk about your sexual issues that you have. And even then, people get kind of shy, and it's like,
Oh, no, I'm fine. I'm fine.
no, I'm good. But in reality, they're not, and you hear that in conversations. People, they're just not comfortable talking to doctors and people about it, because it's always such a private thing.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
And so, but especially people like me, me and you, that age, that it's like, we're not supposed to be in this position. We're not supposed to have these sexual issues. We're not supposed to have these different complications. And so it's very confusing for our bodies, because we didn't have the progression. Even it went from normal to problems, and that's kind of how it wraps up.
Overnight.
Very, very powerful conversation. This is wonderful, and it needs to be said. As we're talking about it, Angela, we need to break that taboo.
Absolutely.
Women need to be able to turn someplace
Right.
in order to overcome the obstacle of vaginal dryness.
Right.
In order to overcome the scar of a lack of intimacy.
Yep.
So please continue. We
Yes.
love it. We absolutely
Yes,
love it.
yes,
This
sure,
is
for
just a
sure.
great topic.
Well, and what I want to say too to that point is it happens overnight.
Yes.
So unlike going through natural menopause that can take over 5 to 10 years over a woman's lifetime, where I've never done it naturally, so I assume it happens and you ease into it. For us, when you're medically induced, you legit wake up like 85 years old.
Yeah.
Or if you go through a hysterectomy or any sort of surgery to have your ovaries and
Right.
fallopian tubes removed, or get these shots, because all of a sudden, I mean, I haven't had my period since 2016. And the only positive thing is I know I can get in the swimming pool at any time, any place, anywhere, and wear my white pants, and there's not a problem. But
You can go in the ocean and you don't have to worry about sharks.
ooh, that is a perk right there.
Yep.
All right. So to all my friends out in like the East Coast, when we were down at the Cape a couple weekends ago and we were worried about the sharks,
No,
not this girl, not me. Love it. But that's such a good point. Like it happens overnight, and the intensity of the hot flashes, the intensity of the symptoms, I feel like are exponential.
Yes,
Which
and
creates
it's
a lot
very
of emotional issues.
absolutely, and it's very interesting because I just had a client call me today to talk to me and place an order, and it's I try so hard to make it comfortable for them when they call. Everybody who picks up the phone and they call me, and I'm very friendly, and I talk to them, and they said, well, I'm calling about the pearl that helps with the dryness, down there. And I said, okay, so you're having vaginal dryness. Let's talk about this. Let's see what we can do to figure this out. I don't know why it's so hard for me to say dry vagina, and that's talking to another woman. And so if that tells you about how society has made this, turn into...
We don't have to all be 13 years old and say the word vagina and then giggle or whisper or be like our son when he wants to talk about all of his business. He says, my Netherlands. That's his... That was his referral to it. It's like we're grown-ups and we are, especially female to female. Let's just talk about it. And
it's okay. And that's where I try to help ease and say, it's okay, let's talk about this. And by the time we get off the phone, they've really dumped into it. But this lady today to me says, I had breast cancer over 20 years ago. They completely did a full hysterectomy. My doctor never once said, you're going to go, yes, you'll go through menopause, but they never once said you're going to have atrophy later in life. And she said she went into her gynecologist just a couple weeks ago, and they said, what do you expect when you turn a 20-year-old vagina into a 7-year-old vagina?
Yep.
And you don't have estrogen.
But you don't know what to expect.
Exactly. That's it. And that's what
that
she
was
said.
The response?
Yeah. I know, and I couldn't believe it when she told me that. And I said, I'm so sorry. I'm going to send you some samples, okay?
Or they say you're going to go into menopause as if we know what that means.
I know.
Right.
That's the other
especially
problem,
when you're 20 years old, 30s, it's like, menopause? What? I know that you grow beards and that's about it. That's what I know.
Right, and you don't get your period anymore. You can't have children.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Right.
Like, I get that. That's fine.
But what does that mean? How does that help? What does all that happen? What happens to you when that happens?
Right. And so not only do you have, for example, Alicia, your new norm with not being reconstructed, but now you have vaginal dryness and you have these new experiences and pain that you're experiencing that you never experienced before. And so, how does that work in relationships? How does that work for you personally?
How, what's interesting is when I was first diagnosed with the breast cancer, I was...
Oh, I love that. The breast cancer.
The breast cancer.
It's very like...
Alicia, I don't think you've identified yourself yet.
Well, I am Alicia, and
Hi, Alicia.
Hi, Alicia, and I am a breast cancer alcoholic.
Cheers to that. Oh my God, that is a thing. I didn't know that was a thing, but I'm so glad I'm not alone.
Here's a new first norm. So I was diagnosed in 2011 with what they thought was originally going to be stage 2 breast cancer, invasive ductal carcinoma. It turned out after the surgery, after the chemo and then the surgery, they found it to be stage 3. When I had my lymph nodes taken out, there were 5 of the 12 lymph nodes that had been actually had the cancer in them, but it was actually protruding out of the lymph nodes. So even after the chemo had gone through and tried to do its job, it wasn't as good of a reaction that the doctors were all hoping we would have. So they saw some scar tissue, but they just saw also where it was protruding out of the lymph nodes.
Did you do the chemotherapy first?
I did.
So did I.
Did you?
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a complete response either.
Okay.
Interesting.
And that's why they say that, I was told, I don't know about you, but they said that they do that with young people so that they know what kind of response that chemo is going to do on us. Yeah?
Yeah, totally.
Interesting.
To see. And we felt the tumor size shrink. Like there was a lot of momentum and positivity. Every time I would go in, we would do like the self-exams and, it wasn't mammography. It was just like through touch and, the self-breast exams. But you could feel the shrinkage of the size of the tumor from when I first walked in the door. Okay. And so my oncologist was super like excited. And it was almost like, I can't wait for the surgery and get confirmation that you had a 100% response rate to this type of treatment.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember sitting there after the surgery and my breast surgeon, who, if she's watching, you were amazing. I mean, she was just the most personable surgeon doctor in general that I had ever had up to that point. And she sat in front of me after the surgery and she said, we didn't get the response that we thought we were going to get. And she said, and it's a little more aggressive than what we thought. And I remember her, I said, well, what stage is that then? And she said, well, it would be considered stage 3. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, that is the end of the world, because I know that stage 4 is not a survival. And so I thought metastatic. And so I thought, oh, okay, well, that's not good. That was very hard to swallow, because I thought, okay, I'm stage 2. I had that mindset that a lot of people still come to us and say, oh, well, I'm only stage 0, I'm only stage 1. And that was my mindset. It was, oh, I'm just stage 2. So I'm kind of more out of the woods than somebody else. And so it was a reality check when they said stage 3. It just made me more scared. And I thought, but then in the end, I thought, you know what? I had it owned when I was in stage 2. There is nothing different. I'm still going to fight it the same. I'm still going to keep the mindset. I used to say cancer, it will take my hair, it will take my breast, but it's not going to take who I am. And that's what I told her when I had to deal with the new norm. I thought, I don't even, it changed everything about me, but I said, it's not going to take who I am inside. And it didn't, and that didn't change no matter what stage it was or now is.
It's amazing how you can internalize the information,
Yeah.
right? Like, so many thoughts right now. So, like, you got diagnosed at stage 2. You went through treatment and came out a more aggressive stage.
Right.
How the hell does that happen?
Yeah.
That is a great question. I know. So I did ask that question, and from the biopsy and from the scans, it was like my lymph nodes. I had one that was 4 centimeters, and so I think what it sounds like it was blocking the ones that were in there, and it kind of molded some of them. So from the pictures and the images that it appeared that there was only, I think they thought it was only 2 lymph nodes that were involved. When they were able to get in there and actually take the whole patch out is where they found that it was all 5 and then some.
Yeah, and that's a really scary moment too, is like, you go through surgery and there's so much lead up to surgery, and I remember my anxiety levels through the roof waiting for my pathology after the surgery.
Oh, yeah.
It was like, I was so happy to wake up from surgery. First of all, I'm like, I'm awake. Like, this is a good thing. Like, very basic needs right here on like Maslow's like hierarchy. But then it was like, oh my gosh, what if I didn't get complete margins? I would have to go through this surgery again. What if, I ended up doing a double lumpectomy on both sides, and what if they found cancerous tissues on the other breast that was undetected and asymptomatic? What if there was so many what ifs? And the lymph nodes, I had the full axillary node dissection, and what if more came back, right? And so I think that's one, you're in this like, yay, happy, I'm awake from the anesthesia and I survived the surgery and I'm managing the drains and I'm going through the day-to-day. But 7 days later, you go back for your pathology, you can talk to your doctors, and your life can also change again instantly in that moment.
And once, the first time that you're told you have cancer, when you never thought that could happen to you in a million years, that's always in the back of your head now. So in 7 days I go back, oh, I'm sure it'll be fine. Well, will it? Because the first time it wasn't fine.
We battle that. She's, as the caregiver, she's very positive. She tries to be the, almost to a fault, because I say, do you have to be so positive? Can you just be scared with me,
And I'm scared to death. I'm scared to death, but I'm always trying to tell her, it's, oh, no, it's just sinus, or it's, oh, your headaches? Well, it's allergies. Oh, but if you're that concerned, you need to call the doctor.
And and with my quick wit that I have, I always,
because that's what we do. It's like a side effect of chemo. You get so quick witty over here, like it's like Spitfire.
Yeah, chemo equals quick wit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and they don't tell you that when you go in.
They need
I
to
think
tell us caregivers that. So we know what to expect.
yeah. So you guys be prepared.
Yeah,
we come
yeah.
out sassy.
Yeah.
You know, it was what I tell her is, you know, she says, well, yeah, but this can be explained with, you know, you've been really stressed, or you just, you know, you just worked out, or you just did this. I'm like, yeah, but it was all explained in the beginning but that's how I got into my situation of it being as aggressive as it was, because I explained it. Everything that I had symptomatic was explained from life, and that's why I got in the position that I'm in. Mine wouldn't be as aggressive, and I would have caught it sooner and maybe had a better outlook and outcome, but I didn't because it was explained. So now anything that can still be explained is not good enough for me. You know, it's still a panic, because it's like, shoot, it could be explained, but it always has been explained, and it's either cancer or life, and I've already done that kind of 50-50 chance, and lost.
And well, no, you're winning.
I'm winning now.
Yeah, you're winning now, right?
Got my hair back.
Yeah. Little wins along the way. What type of cancer? So you mentioned stage 3, but what type of pathology came back? Were you HER2 positive, triple negative?
You know what? The funny thing is
there's always a story here when I ask that question.
I know.
It's never black and white.
It really isn't. It really isn't. So
it's a trick question.
It was negative, HER2 negative, but it was like estrogen fed. So it was never just a black and white situation.
I
know. It was. In fact, I didn't even know what kind of cancer I had when, because I had my biopsy, and I had a PA, physician assistant, and you know who you are. She was not a good bedside manner, and she waited an extra day to tell me my you know, when you're already waiting for your results and your biopsy to come back, and it's been not only the weekend, but now it has become into the week, and I was just panicked. I'm freaking out, you know, and so I'm trying to just, you know, distract myself. I finally get her on the phone, and she tells me that it's cancer. She says, I answer the phone. She says, oh, you sound busy. And I was in the car. I pulled over. I rolled up the windows. I turned off the AC in middle of summer because I had to hear every single word she was about to tell me. And so she said, well, you sound busy. I said, I am not busy. You need to tell me I'll call you back in 5 minutes. No, you won't. You will tell me my results. So she says to me, well, it's, this is how she says, oh, it's cancer. That's it. Bam. It's cancer. I was like, what is cancer? You know, I was like, wait, what is cancer? I'm cancer? I have cancer?
Right.
I think you're mistaken. So I said, well, what kind of cancer? You know, I mean, I didn't know that there was breast cancer, brain cancer, lung. I thought it was just cancer's cancer, and it happens to land on your brain, or it happens to land on the breast, or, you know, that just
exactly.
makes it that.
That's such a good point too.
Right. So I had no idea. I didn't even know about. I knew lymphoma and leukemia were the only 2 cancers I was even just aware of the words really. And so she says that it was definitely breast cancer, and I said, well, okay, and I like breast cancer only has 1 breast cancer, and I said, well, is that just breast cancer? Yeah, it's just breast cancer. Okay.
That's what she said.
That's what she said, and I said, how bad is it? You know, and her response was, Alicia, do you have people in your life that are important to you? Yeah. Okay, you need to...
I mean, who doesn't? I mean, what?
I know! She says, you need to spend as much time with those people as you can. And then she follows it up, and I said, well, am I dying? Am I gonna die? She says, do you have spiritual beliefs? What? You know, I was like, I guess so, you know, well...
I do now. I
know. Are we reading me my last rites? And so,
okay, I'm like jaw dropped here for people listening on the podcast.
Yeah,
like, this is a true story?
Yes, absolutely. And so I followed up with, I said, well, what do we know what stage it is? She says, and then she says, she reads, was so funny. It's funny now, it was not funny then.
Right.
She tells me, so here's the thing. She goes, yeah, it's a 6 in your lump in your breast. And I said, what the hell does a 6 mean? And she goes, let me look. And so she'd read the legend at the bottom, and she says, oh, 6 is for sure cancer. And I said, what does that mean? I said, are we like on a 0 to 10? Like, what's the scale? She says it's 0 to 6. 0 being nothing, 6 being cancer. And I said, oh, well, perfect. So I won the lottery. And so then she tells me I was a 6. She goes, oh, yep, 6 in your lymph nodes. Oh, I was like, what about my lymph nodes? Because I didn't even realize that was a thing. I didn't realize that we were even...
Oh, neither did I.
Yeah.
I went... Okay, sorry to interrupt,
go
but
ahead.
I went through... This is so funny. So, funny now.
Yeah.
Totally funny now. That's my new thing. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Funny now. So, they order all these tests. And I've never really been sick before. I've never broken bones. I've always been like, I don't know. I go for my physical once a year and things are cool. So... I think I might have cancer, so I go in for my screening, my diagnostic screening, and all of a sudden, my oncologist is ordering all of these tests. Happens on a Monday. My mom flies out from Chicago to be with me and William while I'm going through a day of testing, CT scans, MRIs, and a full body bone scan. Have you ever done a full body bone scan?
Mm-hmm.
I never have. This was my first time, right? But the machine comes an inch above your body.
Yeah.
They wrap you up like a mummy.
Yeah.
And then they leave the room.
Right.
And I'm like, what if the machine falls on me?
Yeah.
I can't get out.
Yeah.
I can't move my head. I can't call for help. I'm strapped down on a machine that comes millimeters from my head
Yeah.
and scans my entire freaking body.
Yeah.
And the guy walks back in the room to to make sure the computer's still on or whatever it is that they're doing. And I'm like mumbling, can you not leave the room? Please don't leave the room. He's like, is everything okay? I'm like, no.
Really?
Why did you leave the room? Did you just strap me down on this machine? And I can't move. And you left.
This is the worst date ever.
I was totally freaking out. Oh my God. But I didn't know what they were looking for. So this was, I don't even call it denial. I just did not know.
Right.
I thought my doctor ordered a bunch of tests. I was going through the process and I was going to come out fine.
Right.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, what I didn't realize was my mom and William in the waiting room knew exactly what this test was. And they were trying to identify how far the cancer had spread because it was identified that I had breast cancer. From the mammogram and the biopsies. And then we just didn't know if it went to my bones, if it went to my liver, if it went to the organs. And so we had to go through all of these tests to actually see and confirm how far it actually went. And had I known that when these tests were ordered, I would have been petrified.
Yeah.
Here I am oh, there's this new test. All right, cool. Let me put on my Johnny and hop on the machine. And then all of a sudden they're strapping me down. I'm like, where's this going? What is happening? And so it's scary. And I think this is why I'm going into that level of detail here too and kind of laughing about it. But unless you Google bone scans, unless you go on YouTube and see what the machine looks like, see what the MRI machine looks like, see what the CT scan looks like, ask someone what Dramamine tastes like when you have to drink these terrible things. It's all for good reason, but we don't have the information. It's not available to us.
Right. And you don't know to ask those questions because you don't know that what they're doing the test for half the time or what they're looking for or there's the stuff that the dye that
that contrast.
Contrast.
Yes.
Thank you. That makes you want to pee your pants for a split second. You're like, what is happening? I thought my cancer was up in my chest. What? Why am I? And I already have a menopause problem, so I don't need help almost peeing my pants.
Right.
And so I was like, why? And then it's it's gone. It's okay, well, thank goodness. But they also don't tell you when you go into your radiation appointment for the first time. They have you and you're laying on your back with, I pick female doctors when I can. A lot of women do, they're more comfortable anyways, but I had a male doctor. I had a couple male radiation staff. The doctors and staff there were amazing. I loved every one of them. But you have them. They pull open your shirt. I had one giant what I call uniboob because I couldn't have the second breast removed because chemo and my had hurt my heart so much. So I had just this one giant boob. I have, 3 people leaning over me, putting dots with pen marks all over me. And then they're like, okay, we're going to do my first tattoo was the radiation tattoos,
Mine
which
too.
hurt on your ribs.
Yes!
I was like,
They totally hurt.
Grieve, what is that? You know,
I was told they were going to be black and look like a mole. Mine are blue.
Mine are blue.
Mine too. I was like, that is not black like a mole. That looks like I dropped my pen and I didn't shower. Like,
Yes, I know. And I had like 3 of them. I was like, I looked at him like, what is that? That doesn't look like a mole. That literally looks like I had died, you know? It was like, I mean, it was terrible. And so I'm laying there.
I don't care how small it is. I see it.
I see it too. Until I got my chest tattoo. And I told Mary Jane, I said, you have got to cover these stupid like little marks of me. And so we did, thankfully, but I was not having that. I was like, that is the worst idea. But nobody tells you this stuff, and well, they don't even get the color right. But
And I told my nurses too. I was like, just like FYI, like it's blue.
it's blue.
Like, but they were grateful. They were like, thank you. I'm like, I just want to let you know, like, it's not black or brown. Like, it does not look normal.
It doesn't. Yeah. So thanks. It was funny because
Thanks,
now
Cancer.
I have melanoma. Thank you.
well, and this one over here, we she started coming to me with me to the radiation appointments. I mean, the first one was the most emotional radiation appointment I've ever done. I couldn't get myself together. It was, I mean, I cried, and the machine, I didn't know what the machine did. It doesn't, you don't feel it right away, you know, and the machine is decently away from you, but it looks like, if you've ever seen Flight of the Navigator movie, it looks like that little giant head that swirls around you in front. I mean, that's exactly what this thing does, and you're like, I don't know what is going to happen, if this is going to be like an Independence Day thing where it just shoots straight through.
Right.
Like,
or I beam onto like Mars.
Right, yeah. Like, what?
Yeah.
Am I radioactive right now? You know, what is happening? And so, or, you've seen Final Destination where they laser the lady's eyes and her eyes pop out. It's like, I don't know what I'm supposed to expect. I don't know. And so I remember just laying there and I was just, my lip is quivering and I couldn't get myself, I was a blubbering mess. And one of the females came in, one of the female nurses, and she comes in and she says, she was the same age as me. We went to about the same high school on the beach. She was just below, but we both played basketball, and we had figured out that we actually played each other. And it was really interesting to see somebody who is actually my age and had been athletic with me and like where she's at now, and I'm on the table. But she was so nice, and she gave me a second to get myself together, and she stopped everything, and it was very nice. And but I mean the whole day afterwards, I went home. I went and hung out with friends, and I just cried. I cried all day. It was like reality mixed with just scared, mixed with I can't believe what I just went through. And my doctor eventually, I did start to become funny, and but we were in one of my appointments, and you never want to make your nurses mad with the radiation. And this one over here decides that she wants to, my nurse comes in and she had a little bit of a belly, and she says, her whisper voice isn't a whisper voice. And so she kind of goes, hey, but that was the quietest. Then as the nurse is walking out, she goes, is she pregnant? I was like, why don't you not talk? Because why couldn't hey been louder than that? Why couldn't you whisper, is she pregnant? And so I thought, this is the lady who's running the machine that's going to zap through me. And she wants to be all funny. And she was like, oh, was I that loud? Oh my gosh, yes. So, but I did end up telling my doctor, the radiation doctor, I said, because my scars opened up, the radiation opened up my scar really bad. And we had to
because the skin was peeling or like okay.
Yeah.
It was the actual mastectomy incision.
Yeah.
It completely opened it up.
It just opened
and
right up.
And she had 3rd-degree burns on top of 3rd-degree burns in there. And they couldn't stop the radiation because you're right in the middle of that. You've got to continue.
Yep.
And
despite 3rd-degree burns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was what, 8 weeks?
7
weeks of 5 days a week.
Yes.
Radiation. And she was working at this time because...
So you're back to work with your radiation?
Yeah.
I had to.
And she would come, before she left, I'd have to pack the wound. They couldn't close it up because it needs to be able to drain. And so we'd have to pack the wound, and then she'd get home at night, and then, we'd have to change the packing out, and I would put some, I think it was silver or something.
Yeah, it was some nice silver gel type stuff that they gave us.
Put in the wound and stuff, but it was awful.
Were the doctors concerned about infection?
They were. That's why they wouldn't stop. That's why they wouldn't stop it, but they also wouldn't let it seal up or like sew it or anything because they didn't want to sew the infection.
It was deep enough that it should have had stitches, but you can't sew infection in there, so we just had to keep packing it. And,
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
I told my my radiation doctor, we were in one of the appointments, and you cry so much over the diagnosis, and you cry at different points because of it. You have some feel sorry for myself days. You have some that are just scared. You cry because you feel bad for your family. You cry because it's uncertainty. You cry for many reasons during your diagnosis, but I got to a point where I couldn't cry. I turned it into funniness. I laugh at myself. And so my doctor, he didn't really know how to take me, because a lot of people go in there and they are still in the dreary mood, and they are, they don't laugh. It's not funny. And I didn't know how else to deal with it. And so I just basically said to him, I said, "What are you doing to me?" And he looks at me, and he's been this like tough, like older gentleman that was always so like strict to the business. This is what we're going to do, da 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 da. And he kind of stops and he looks at me and he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Your treatment is killing me." And he looks at me and he says, "I'm so sorry about that." And his eyes welted up.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, no, it's okay. I get it." I was like, no. I felt so bad. This was like such a professional, like straight to the point doctor. And here I've, made him start tearing up because he felt bad that
He felt really bad.
that there was nothing we could do about it, but just keep going.
But keep going. And I think end segment there. That is so like what breast cancer is. It is, we wear pink ribbons, we bring awareness, we talk about it. But this is so raw. Like, thank you for sharing. Like I can visually see the packing of like wounds opening up, and how many stories have we heard where you're like, there is legit a hole in my body because I had cancer.
Right.
And yes, we removed the cancer. Maybe, because it may have spread to the lymph nodes and other places. But I'm still going through hell, enduring 3rd-degree burns. And I have a burn. So let me just ask you, if you got a 3rd-degree burn, would you show up the next morning to get more?
Right.
And you do.
Yeah.
And so to circle full back to this like reverse podcast that we're doing, thank you for showing up, right? Like, you are showing up for so many reasons.
And for so many people.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's what this is.
And I
this
think-
is for so many people.
And I think you talked also about, I think you answered the question, but I do just want to ask it more formally. Why do you think during radiation, that's the piece that almost broke you in terms of just coming home and crying, versus at this point you've already gone through treatments of chemotherapy and surgery? So why now?
I think that it was the first time I felt absolutely alone. I felt very alone. And I don't know, some of it I know why, but some of it I think that when you get to your radiation point, some people, they do start seeing it like you're getting better, and they start expecting you to act better, and it's not in the limelight. And my dad was he checked on me every day, and he was not somebody that that did treat me that way, but there was a lot of people. But that day, especially the first radiation day, and I think that it kind of went from, I knew about chemo. I didn't know what it did. I didn't know everything about it, but I did have a little more explanation from the oncologist. And I was aware of chemo, the gist of it. The surgery was the same thing, but I had no idea anything about the radiation. I didn't know what the machine looked like. I didn't know anything that entailed. I didn't understand it. Maybe they explained it to me, but because of chemo, you don't remember a lot of stuff that comes in.
Or you don't hear it. You hear
You don't
like,
hear
okay, next is, radiation, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Like,
Right.
yeah.
And I think it was a combination.
Yeah. I appreciate the advances that are happening in treatment, in practice. I remember talking to my radiologist about this new technique of breathing, when they want you to take a very deep breath before the couple seconds of radiation where they zap where the cancer was. And this idea is that when you take a deep breath, you're expanding the space between your chest and your heart.
Okay.
And so I was like, well, that's great. Technically, because for me, I was getting radiation on my left side. So I'm concerned in signing all these consent forms of I can damage the heart, I can damage the lungs, I can damage blah, blah, blah. These are the long-term effects. If I don't sign here, what are my chances, right? So I remember lying on the table with my blue dots, and this machine comes down, and I think I'm going to be zapped over to Mars. And they tell me to take a deep breath and hold it. And I just remember, and again, I appreciate the techniques, but I have to be cynical and say, you are giving me radiation to kill a disease in my body, and you are telling me that I take a deep breath, and you're going to avoid an inch or millimeters from my heart, and just that breath is going to be like you're having this beam penetrate so many layers.
Yeah.
But I'm helping the cause by taking a deep breath.
Right.
And I took the deep breaths. And I encourage everyone to take the deep breaths because it will help.
Because it's what the doctor says.
But it's so hard.
Yeah. Just understand that you're not alone with that confusion and that difficulty of why am I taking this deep breath? I'm gonna do it, but it's like when you're a little kid, your parent tells you to go do this, and you're like, why? This makes no sense. I'm gonna do it, but I'm not gonna like it, and I don't understand it. But you do it because they say to do it.
Yes.
And that's, but all your other siblings understand the same frustration and know that, okay, I get it. Yeah, this is obnoxious, but we'll do it because it is.
Right.
So you're not alone.
Yeah. Check in the box. I did what was right, and we'll see what happens.
Right.
So awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Okay, so this podcast, this live, this everything is going to be like hours. Does everyone have like enough pizza, wine, drink? Do we need to take like a little, like a 2-second break?
Yeah.
And then we will come right back because coming up, I have some questions to think about. I want to get back to your relationships. I definitely want to hear more about your story. I know we've kind of interjected and segued, but I would love to get back to like the decision around surgery and the decision to go flat.
Yeah.
Because I also understand that a lot of people end up going flat because it's not a choice. It's because implants did not work out. It's because of one reason or another. And I definitely have some comments too when I was kind of debating my options at that time. I think that's a really awesome
I have
topic.
a funny story, so I'll remind me of that funny story later.
Yes. Oh, okay. Funny. I'm writing it down because of chemo brain.
Yeah, thank you.
Emotional issues, I think, is a super hot topic, especially with your background in psychology too, and as the caregiver. So I think there's a lot of great conversation there. So. Oh my God, this is such a great hook. Stay tuned.
Hold on.
Oh, hold on. There's more.
There's a couple more.
Okay.
With regards to the tattoo issue, I'd like you to expand upon that. With regards to Pat Summit, I'd like you to expand upon that. That's a really good one. That's very honest, and it's a real part of your personality. And then with regards to caregiving, just to hear you characterize it and define it, and help others who are going to be going through this, and I'm giving that speech on Saturday, but this is your turn, and ultimately what guidance you can provide to make it a little bit less onerous and a little bit less intimidating, because it's a very difficult job.
Sure.
Maybe that's how we'll close.
Yes,
So write those down.
All right. So give us 5 minutes. We'll be back on our live Facebook, and stay tuned. All right.
Hi, guys.
Wow, so if that wasn't a hook, I hope you all tune in next week because we are going to have part 2 of this amazing dialogue. Thanks, and until next time. And thank you, everyone, for listening to our show. I would like to acknowledge that all of the information on our podcast are from personal experiences and are not a substitute for professional medical advice. You should always contact your medical care team. If you're looking for specific topics or would like to be a guest on our show, please feel free to reach out to me. My email is laura@survivingbreastcancer.org. Until next time, keep on thriving.